Autumn, 1968. A few miles outside Ridgway, Colorado, an aging rancher stood at the edge of the True Grit set, shouting at men who wanted him to fill out a form. 3 hours earlier, a production truck had passed through one of his ranch gates. A local boy watched a crewman close the gate without securing the chain. By late afternoon, most of the cattle had been gathered. One calf was missing. Its mother had been calling from the corral for nearly an hour, and the old rancher was no longer strong enough to search the hills on horseback. Here is the story. He did not ask the production company for money. He asked for riders. But the crew was finishing a long day, the horses were being returned to their pens, and the production manager kept pointing toward an office. John Wayne had just completed his final scene when he heard the old man raise his voice. Wayne listened for less than a minute. Then he looked toward the stunt riders and asked one question. "Any of you boys got one more ride in you before dark?" 4 men stepped forward. The rancher's name was Walter Briggs. He was 68 years old and had lived on the same piece of Colorado land for most of his adult life. It was not a large ranch. Walter kept a modest herd of Hereford cattle, repaired his own fences, and still rose before daylight every morning. From a distance, he appeared capable of doing everything he had done at 40. Up close, the truth was harder to hide. His right hip had never fully recovered from a fall years earlier. He could walk slowly across level ground and work around the barn, but climbing into a saddle had become dangerous. On cold mornings, merely lifting his boot over a low rail could take several attempts. Walter hated admitting that. He had spent his life solving problems without waiting for someone younger to arrive. Now there were certain jobs his body simply would not allow him to do. Riding into the hills after a wandering animal was one of them. During the autumn of 1968, the countryside around Ridgway and Montrose had been transformed by the production of True Grit. Film trucks moved along roads normally used by ranchers and delivery drivers. Horses, wagons, costumes, and equipment appeared against the Colorado mountains. Most local families welcomed the production. It brought work into town. Restaurants stayed busy. Young people found jobs handling equipment, guiding visitors, and caring for animals. Walter did not object to the filming. Part of a dirt access road crossed the northern edge of his land, and the production had received permission to use it when necessary. There was only one condition. Every gate had to be closed and chained. The cattle were accustomed to their own fields, but an open gate offered too much temptation, especially to younger animals that had not yet learned where curiosity ended and trouble began. The missing calf was nearly 4 months old. It was a red and white Hereford, healthy, fast, and just old enough to believe every open space had been placed there for its amusement. Walter had already repaired one section of fence after finding the calf on the wrong side of it earlier that month. The animal was not weak or helpless. That was the problem. It could cover a surprising distance before anyone noticed it was gone. At approximately 3 in the afternoon, a production truck approached Walter's northern gate. An 11-year-old boy named Tommy Hale was walking home along the county road when he saw it. Tommy lived on a neighboring property and had spent most of that autumn searching the roads for any glimpse of the film stars working nearby. He stopped when the truck slowed. A crewman climbed down, removed the chain, and swung the wooden gate open. The truck passed through, leaving a trail of dust behind it. The crewman pulled the gate closed again. But instead of fastening the chain through the iron loop, he draped it over the post. Perhaps he believed the weight would hold it. For several minutes it did. Then the wind pushed against the gate. The chain slid down the post and the gate moved open by several feet. Tommy watched 2 cattle approach the opening. He ran toward Walter's house. Walter was repairing a feeder behind the barn when the boy arrived. "Mr. Briggs, the movie truck left your north gate open." Walter dropped his wrench. "How long?" "Just now. Maybe 5 minutes." Walter could not run, but he moved as quickly as his hip permitted. By the time he reached the northern field, several cattle had already crossed through the opening. Others were gathering nearby. Walter secured the chain first. Then he began the slow work of bringing the animals back. He did not have a horse he could safely ride, so he used the method he trusted most. He carried a metal feed bucket into the field and struck the side with a short wooden handle. The familiar sound brought the older cows toward him. Walter walked backward toward the corral, calling and rattling the bucket. One by one, the cattle followed. Some came immediately. Others wandered toward the roadside grass and had to be turned by Walter and Tommy. It took more than an hour. By the time the final cow entered the corral, Walter's hip was aching and his shirt was wet across the back. He closed the gate and began spreading feed. At first, everything appeared normal. The herd crowded around the troughs. Dust rose around their legs. Walter leaned against the fence and allowed himself to breathe. Then he heard one cow calling. It was not the ordinary low sound cattle made around feeding time. The cow stood away from the others, facing the northern field. She called once, waited, and then called again. Walter looked at her. Then he looked through the calves gathered near the trough. He counted them. He counted again. The red and white calf was missing. Walter walked along the fence, checking behind the larger animals. He searched the small shelter and the space between the barn and the water tank. The calf was not there. Its mother continued to call. Walter understood what must have happened. The calf had crossed through the open gate, but had not followed the older cattle back to the sound of the feed bucket. The northern field led toward a dry creek bed, a line of thick brush and several low ridges. Beyond those ridges were miles of unfamiliar ground. There were also steep banks, broken fencing, and places where a frightened animal could become trapped. Walter left Tommy near the corral and began searching on foot. He followed the fence line first. At the northern gate, he found small hoof prints mixed with the production truck's tire tracks. The prints led toward the creek bed. Walter called for the calf as he walked, stopping every few minutes to listen. No answer came. The farther he went, the more difficult the ground became. Loose stones rolled beneath his boots. Sagebrush caught against his trousers. Twice, his right leg nearly gave way. He continued until the land dropped sharply toward the creek. Walter knew he could not cover enough ground before dark. The sun was already moving toward the mountains, and the temperature would fall quickly once it disappeared. A 4-month-old calf could survive a cool night in an open field, but Walter did not know whether it was standing in an open field. It might be caught in wire, trapped along the creek bank, or wandering farther from its mother with every passing minute. He returned to the ranch. Tommy was waiting near the corral. "You find him?" Walter shook his head. The cow called again. Tommy looked toward the distant film location. "I saw their truck open it." Walter followed the boy's eyes. He did not want money from the production company. Money would not help him search the creek before dark. He needed horses. And there were more horses a mile away on the True Grit set than anywhere else in the valley. Walter climbed into his old pickup and drove toward the production. The filming day was ending when he arrived. Crew members were covering equipment, collecting cables and guiding horses toward temporary pens. A few trucks were already leaving. Walter parked near the edge of the location and walked toward the nearest group of workers. A young production assistant stepped in front of him. "Sir, you can't come through here." "I need whoever's in charge." "What's the problem?" "One of your trucks opened my north gate. I've got a calf missing." The assistant looked toward the production office. "You'll need to speak with the location department." "I need 4 men on horses." "Sir, I can't authorize that." "Then find somebody who can." Another employee joined them. He explained that any property damage or livestock loss would be covered by the production's insurance. Walter stared at him. "I'm not asking you to buy the calf." "We understand, sir, but there's a process." "The process won't find him before dark." The employee tried to calm him. "Fill out an incident form. We'll have somebody contact you in the morning." Walter looked toward the row of saddled horses. "You've got riders standing right there." "Those horses are finished for the day." "So am I." The production manager arrived carrying a clipboard. He listened briefly and began asking for Walter's name, address, and details about the gate. Walter's remaining patience disappeared. "Your people opened my gate. My calf is gone. His mother's been calling for an hour, and I'm too old to ride those hills anymore." Several crew members stopped what they were doing. Walter pointed toward the horses. "I don't want your money. I don't want your form. I want help finding what your truck let out." The production manager lowered the clipboard. He was not trying to be cruel. He had a crew to dismiss, animals to account for, and regulations governing who could ride production horses. But none of that mattered to Walter as the sunlight slipped farther down the mountains. A short distance away, John Wayne had finished his final work of the day. He had removed Rooster Cogburn's eye patch and was walking toward his trailer when he noticed the argument. Wayne did not immediately interfere. He stood beside the rail and listened. He saw the clipboard. He saw the old farmer pointing toward the hills. He saw the production employees looking at one another, each waiting for someone else to make a decision. Wayne asked a wrangler standing nearby what had happened. The wrangler gave him the short version. A production truck, an unsecured gate, a missing calf. An old man who could no longer ride. Wayne walked toward Walter. The people around the farmer became quiet when they saw him approaching. Wayne looked at Walter rather than the clipboard. "How old is the calf?" "About 4 months." "How long has it been out?" "Could be 3 hours." "Which direction?" "North gate toward the creek. That's where the tracks went." Wayne glanced at the sun. "Can you ride?" Walter's expression tightened. "Not anymore." Wayne nodded once. He did not ask why. He turned toward a group of stunt riders who had been unsaddling near the temporary pens. "Any of you boys got one more ride in you before dark?" For a moment, no one moved. Then one man raised his hand. "Sure, Duke." A second stepped forward, then a third, then a fourth. Wayne looked toward the wrangler. "Keep 5 saddled." The production manager began to explain the insurance problem. Wayne held up one hand. "No speech. We're losing light." Walter drew a rough map in the dirt with the end of his cane. He marked the northern gate, the creek bed, a stand of cottonwoods, and 2 ridges where cattle sometimes wandered. Wayne and the 4 stuntmen divided the ground between them. One rider would follow the eastern fence, another would check the county road and drainage ditch. 2 would ride opposite sides of the creek. Wayne would begin at the tracks Walter had already found and work north. Walter returned to the ranch to wait near the corral. If the calf heard its mother and came back on its own, someone needed to be there. Within minutes, the 5 riders left the set. There was no camera following them. No director arranged their positions against the mountains. They rode quickly only until they reached Walter's gate. Beyond it, they slowed and began studying the ground. The small hoof prints were difficult to separate from older tracks. Wayne followed the creek while the other riders widened the search. The late afternoon light stretched their shadows across the field. Dust hung behind the horses and glowed in the lowering sun. For nearly half an hour they found nothing certain. One rider discovered prints near a patch of sagebrush, but they disappeared on harder ground. Another found a broken branch along the creek. Wayne continued north, stopping occasionally to listen. Then a shout came from beyond the cottonwoods. "Duke, over here!" Wayne turned his horse toward the voice. Another stuntman reached the location at the same time. The first rider had found the calf inside a wide patch of brush near the creek. It was not injured, but it was frightened. When the rider approached, the calf pushed deeper into the brush and tried to break past him toward the open ground. The 2 stuntmen dismounted. One moved slowly along the creek side to block the escape. The other approached from the rear, speaking quietly. The calf turned again. For several minutes, the men allowed it to settle. Rushing would only send it running farther. When the calf tried to pass between them, one stuntman caught it carefully around the neck and shoulders. The other used a soft stock rope to make a loose halter. The calf struggled briefly, then stopped. Wayne dismounted and examined its legs. No blood, no broken bone, no wire caught around the hooves. Only exhaustion, fear, and several hours away from the herd. One of the stuntmen handed Wayne the end of the rope. "If we pull him from the ground, he'll fight it all the way home." Wayne looked at the calf, then at his horse. "We walk him." The men mounted again. Wayne rode in front, keeping the rope loose. He allowed the calf to choose a comfortable pace rather than dragging it behind the horse. Two stunt riders followed at a distance, one on either side. Whenever the calf tried to turn toward the brush, they moved their horses gently into its path. The other riders joined them as they approached the ranch. They traveled slowly. No one hurried the calf. By the time they reached the final rise, the sun remained more than an hour above the mountains. Walter was standing beside the open corral gate. Tommy waited on the fence nearby. The cow heard the riders before Walter saw them. She lifted her head and called. A moment later, the calf answered. Walter stepped away from the gate. 5 riders appeared over the low rise. John Wayne rode at the front with the loose rope in his hand. The calf walked beside his horse, tired but unharmed. The stunt riders remained behind it, guiding it toward the corral. Walter removed his hat. As the calf neared the gate, it heard its mother call again and tried to move faster. Wayne slowed his horse and gave it more rope. One of the stuntmen dismounted at the gate and removed the loose halter. The calf ran the final distance on its own. Its mother met it near the feed trough. Walter watched them touch noses. For several seconds he said nothing. Then he looked up at Wayne. "I don't know what to say." Wayne glanced toward the northern gate. "Our mistake. We brought him home." That was all. There was no celebration. The riders were tired, the horses needed water, and the light was fading. Walter reached out and shook Wayne's hand. Then he shook the hands of all 4 stuntmen. The following morning, a production carpenter arrived at Walter's ranch with a new length of chain, fresh hardware, and tools. He repaired the northern gate and made certain it could not swing open if someone forgot to secure it correctly. The production manager came with him. This time he carried no incident form. He apologized. Walter accepted. The filming continued. No publicity photograph was arranged at the ranch. No press release described the search. The people who had been there simply returned to work. That was what made the moment matter. John Wayne had not solved a great crisis. He had not written a large check or delivered a speech about responsibility. He saw an old man asking for reasonable help after the production had caused a problem. Then he helped fix it before the light disappeared. Character is not always revealed by the size of the problem. Sometimes it is revealed by what a man does when the workday is over, the car is waiting, and the mistake would be easier to leave for someone else in the morning. Wayne could not replace Walter's lost strength. He could lend him 5 horses and an hour of daylight. That was enough. So let me ask you something. Have you ever known someone who took responsibility for a mistake without being forced? Someone who did not offer excuses, money, or paperwork, but simply stayed until the problem was made right? Tell us about that person in the comments. And if stories about responsibility, decency, and keeping your word still matter to you, subscribe and join us for more forgotten stories about the Duke. Unfortunately, they don't make men like John Wayne anymore.